If you know anything about 357 SIG, one of the things you know is that ammo and even components for it can be very expensive. Barry's has come to the rescue with a bullet specifically for the 357 SIG that can save us a good chunk of money. Let's take a look at that. Guy Miner here from UltimateReloader.com. Today we're going to be taking another look at the 357 SIG. Bit of a niche cartridge, but an interesting one. And we're going to take a look and specifically at a new bullet from Barry's intended for that cartridge. By the way, it also works well in pretty much any other 9mm cartridge that you want to use it in. So that's good to know, and let's get into it. 357 SIG, why did it even come about? Well, the idea goes back a long way. In the 80s and 90s, and even before then, a 125 grain jacketed hollow point 357 Magnum was making all kinds of big impressions on law enforcement agencies across the USA. It seemed like most of the agencies were armed with one form or another of a 357 Magnum revolver. This one is my Model 19, 2.5 inch. It's an old one, pin barrel, recessed cylinder. Nice old gun. I've had to have it refinished. It was pretty beat up there for a while. Still shoots great. And I've been using it with 125 grain, 145 grain, 158 grain, pretty much the whole spectrum of 357 Magnum bullets. And to be honest, most of the time I carry it with 38+P. So the idea was that 357 Magnum ballistics of 125 grain jacketed hollow point at 1400, 1450, maybe pushing around 1500 feet per second from a Magnum revolver, take those ballistics and get them in a modern, compact, semi-automatic package. So we get some big advantages there. I mean, take a look at the two guns. They're very similar size. My 357 Magnum, 2.5 inch barrel, 357 SIG, Sig Sauer P229, so similar weight, 12 cartridges. 12 cartridges, yeah. All I can get with a 125 out of this gun is about 1155 feet per second. And that's about its max out. To get that 1400 foot per second level out of 357 Magnum with a 125, we had to go to Gavin's 6-inch long L-frame Smith & Wesson, and that did an honest 1400 feet per second with the 125s. Very, very nice gun. But that's a 6-inch barrel revolver. You're getting into a very large gun at that point. So the idea was to get the power of this in a semi-automatic. There's a 9mm. The 9 was coming up short with a 124, 125. It was coming up with a max of about 1200 feet per second out of a 5-inch barreled semi-automatic. Enter the 357 SIG, which is essentially, not quite, but essentially a 40 caliber Smith & Wesson neck down to 35 caliber or 9mm. That all of a sudden put us up there in the ballpark, 1400 feet per second in a compact duty type weapon like this P229. 3.9 inch barrel, and man, it's doing great. It's right up there with the 6-inch 357 Magnum revolver and twice the capacity. Interestingly, 357 SIG hit the law enforcement market hard in the 90s, got real popular, and then lost popularity. Why? Logistics. It was an expensive item to buy. There was a limited number of ammunition sources for it. And then you took a look at the incredible growth of the 9mm in popularity and its much lower prices. And bullet technology caught up. 9mm got better and better, and the 357 SIG sort of wavered out there, and I don't think there's very many law enforcement agencies using it at all anymore. It's just kind of gone by the wayside, leaving it as pretty much a specialty or niche cartridge, something that an enthusiast would own and use. I know of a guy who's used them to take quite a few white-tailed deer where he was able to get to reasonable ranges and use his semi-automatic pistol, 124 grain bullets, and take down a nice whitetail very easily. He did a good job with that. So yeah, it's obviously a very capable cartridge. The problem comes when you try to either buy ammo for it, it's expensive, or to hand load for it, the components themselves are expensive. And that's where we get into the Barry's Bullet. Taking a look at hand loading the 357 SIG, there's a couple of interesting little things to work around. First of all, it's a bottleneck case, much like a little tiny rifle case. It's essentially not quite a 40 caliber Smith & Wesson neck down to 35, and you have this tiny short little neck. That has been difficult to deal with sometimes with using conventional round nose 124 grain 9mm bullets in this. The ogive can wind up a little bit below the case mouth to try and get the proper overall length so that it'll fit in the magazine and cycle through the gun. So that can be a bit of a problem, or getting just enough neck tension on it to hold it in place. What Barry's did is they went ahead and they made a bullet specifically for the 357 SIG. And what they did is they made it a flat point that allowed the bullet to be a little bit shorter and allowed it to fit nicely into the magazine and the chamber and function really well. They gave us a hollow base, flat point, truncated cone bullet that is their thick plating. Most of their single-plated bullets are at 1,200, 1,250 feet per second for a max muzzle velocity. After that, you start stripping the copper plating off of their bullets, exposing the lead core, and that can lead to problems. So this is one of their bullets intended for higher velocities, up to 1,500 feet per second, because it is thick-plated with that soft lead core. It does give you some considerations. You have to be very careful with the crimp. It's easy to over-crimp into the sides of the bullet, break that copper plating, and get down into the lead core if you get too enthusiastic on the crimp. No need to do that whatsoever. Use a taper crimp on this, and you not only get sufficient neck tension to hold the bullet into the cartridge case, but it also makes everything the exact right size to slip right into the chamber and cycle really, really nicely. Taper crimp on that, it works great. And you can buy these bullets in either 250, or they send them to us in, I believe that's a 1,000 round pack right there. That's a lot of bullets, and that'll keep you shooting for a while at a good price. We'll take a look at that too. So to load this ammo for the article, I turned to one of my favorites, Lyman's All-American 8 turret press. It's a versatile press. I've loaded everything from 357 Magnum, handgun ammo to 375 H&H rifle ammo, big Magnum cartridges. I've loaded all kinds of stuff on this 8-station turret press, and I really like it. It's just a smooth, easy press to use. Plenty of workspace on here. I tend to prime off of the press with a handheld primer, and that's fine. I turned to a set of steel dies from Lee for this. I understand that there are some carbide dies now that will work with at least body sizing the 357 SIG case, but we had these steel dies on hand. Just a tiny dab of that Imperial sizing die allowed them to slip right up in there, get properly sized, and everything was good to go. The short neck on the 357 SIG is the issue, and you want to make sure you do get that size properly without crushing the case neck. I may have done that on a couple of cases until I got the dies adjusted right. Okay, about the firearm. We used the SIG Sauer P229 12-shot traditional double action, so it has that long first trigger pull. It's a really nice gun. It's got a little bit of heft to it. It's not particularly lightweight, but it's a good gun, easy to shoot, easy to carry, and 12-round capacity, good accuracy, good reliability. I'd say it's a good all-around gun. There's not a lot of 357 SIG guns in production anymore. There are some, and a lot of times it's pretty easy to convert, say, 40 Smith & Wesson to 357 SIG simply by substituting the barrel. We actually have two different barrels for this gun, 40 and 357. So the bullet is intended for high velocity, up to 1,500. The SIG cartridge, 357 SIG cartridge, is intended for high velocity. I turned to an old favorite of mine, long shot powder. Last year, with a different 124 grain jacketed bullet, we got a solid 1,400 feet per second out of it. And that was at 9 grains, which is what I used, and Hodgdon shows a max of 9.3 grains. 9 grains looked real good on my balance, and so that's what I loaded. That's what we got last time, was 1,400 feet per second with a jacketed bullet. I was curious if the plated bullet would have any dramatically different higher or lower velocity. It did not. We came within 3 feet per second of the loads we shot last year with the jacketed bullet. 1,401 feet per second is what we averaged this year, 9 grains of long shot. There's a little bit left in there. If you want to take it up to Hodgdon's max, another 0.3 grains, 0.3 of a grain, and you can pick up a little bit of velocity, but the gun was working really, really well at 9 grains, so I just left that powder charge alone. After I got used to the gun, I was hitting that gong time after time. I did not do any practical accuracy testing. I didn't try to see what the groups were. I just went out and shot the gong for a bit. Gun was very controllable. The ammunition worked perfectly. It ejected very nicely. It fed beautifully. And we're doing all that at 1,400 feet per second. I know I keep going back to that, but that's a big number, especially if you're used to stuff that's at 1,200 feet per second and less. So that's pretty doggone good. It is essentially the equivalent of a 6-inch barreled .357 Magnum revolver. All right, so how expensive is this .357 SIG stuff? I took a look online at some different ammo and component costs and all that. Ammo, I found loaded ammo from 72 cents a round up to $1.60 a round. So if you're looking at say 1,000 rounds of ammunition and you go for the expensive jacketed hollow point self-defense type ammo, you're looking at 1,600 bucks. That's a lot of money for some bullets. Then if you switch to the full metal jacket practice type ammo, you're down to 720 bucks for 1,000 rounds. Okay, better, but you and I both know what we can get 9mm 1,000 rounds of that for. So this is still a pretty expensive proposition here. And went ahead and calculated out our cost for loading this ammo using new brass. We're at 13 cents a bullet. We're at 26 cents per each piece of brass, about a nickel's worth of powder, and about 8 cents for each primer, or 52 cents each for our hand loads using this Berry's bullet. The biggest cost saver in there is, of course, the Berry's bullet. And that gives me 1,000 rounds at 520 bucks. Now, if I pick up and use, like I did this time, our old brass, clean that, you could take 26 cents off of each one of those. Now we're starting to see some real savings, and .357 SIG ammo comes way down in price because you're using your labor instead of paying for the factory stuff. Okay? Not a bad way to go. It's an expensive little rascal to shoot until you start doing your own hand loading, and then you can really save. So in conclusion, after we loaded quite a few of these, took them out to the range, got our chronograph data, did some practical shooting with it, come back and take a look. I've got some very favorable ideas about this bullet. One, it worked perfectly in that short neck SIG case. That was terrific, and it's absolutely a very good choice for the .357 SIG. Makes it real easy to set the proper overall length for fitting in your magazine and cycling through the gun. The plated bullet being able to hold up to 1,500 feet per second makes it real attractive for .357 SIG guys, maybe also for some folks that are running, say, 38 Super or something. I don't know that for sure, but it seems like something I'd want to take a look at. It's an economical bullet. Typically, Berry's, these plated bullets, are a less expensive alternative to jacketed bullets, and you can use either the loading data for a jacketed bullet or for a cast bullet. You might get a little bit different velocity than what you see in the manuals. That's fine, but either way is fine. The biggest thing you have to worry about is making sure you get that proper crimp on there after you've seated it. I really like using these Berry's bullets, and this one looks like a winner for, again, what is pretty much a niche cartridge at this point, but a good cartridge. And, being a niche cartridge hasn't kept people that, for instance, love the .41 Magnum or something hasn't kept them down at all. They just got a little bit more rabid about that. I think the same thing is happening with a lot of 357 SIG folks. They just really, really like their guns and their ammo. And this kind of bullet can help them enjoy their gun more. I want to know is, are you using 357 SIG? Are you using Berry's plated bullets? Have you tried this particular one yet? It is available, and if you are, let me know. Drop a comment and we'll have a discussion. That means it's time to wrap this up.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're watching Ultimate Reloader on TV and want to take advantage of free resources, exclusives, and hot deals, just hold your camera phone up to the QR code, tap on the link, fill out the information, boom, you're getting Ultimate Reloader emails. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. Thanks again for watching.